looks like Kamaru Usman is fighting George Masvidal again. So these guys last fought, I think, at UFC 251, and Kamaru Usman won 50-45 pretty much across the board. There might have even been a 50-43 in there. I don't know. I can't remember. But it was a very... I hate using the term one-sided, but it was pretty one-sided. You know, you don't like to see Masvidal in those sort of situations, but he was. Now, there is a case for the rematch, and the case is, one, a boatload of cash. If you look at the top 10 to 20 UFC pay-per-views, I think the top 10, unless it's Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, or Brock Lesnar, there's no one else in it, apart from UFC 251, which was Masvidal versus Usman. That entered the UFC pay-per-view rankings. So it's proof that Masvidal can draw. Now, he did kind of have the zeitgeist at that very point of that era and what was going on, and the fact that Conor had disappeared and things like that. It was kind of a bit of a perfect storm for Masvidal. Now, the question will be, can he do it again? And you'll recall at the press conference when Kamaru Usman had just beat Gilbert Burns, and Kamaru Usman, the sitting champion, called out the guy he just 50-45'd. And that was a very weird thing for me. I personally don't like it when the champion calls out anyone. You're the champion, you shouldn't be calling people out. Respond to people, sure. Don't call people out. I find it very weird. So he did that, and there's only one reason he did it. Money. And that's fine. I don't have an issue with Kamaru Usman calling anyone out, but he needs to be honest about what he's doing. He has to go, I want to fight George Masvidal because it's a massive payday. Not claim that, he said this stuff about me. No, he didn't, mate. And if he did, that's not the reason you want to fight him. You want to fight him because it's loads and loads of money. Anyway, I digress. So the reason you can kind of sell the rematch is when you normally have a fight that's that lopsided, you can't really sell the rematch. You can sell this rematch because George Masvidal took that fight on, I think, 6 days' notice. If I'm wrong, I'm close. So you can kind of sell that relatively easily to everybody and be like, well, hang on a minute, he didn't have a full camp and blah, 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 blah. Masvidal was ready to fight. I know that he had a bit of a tough weight cut, but aside from that, I don't think his performance will be too different in this fight versus that fight. He's the same fighter. He's 36. He doesn't really you don't really change your spots that much. It's kind of something that you kind of know what you're going to get from George Masvidal. And that's not a knock on him. I think he's fantastic. But Kamaru Usman knows that Masvidal is the better striker, and he does not want to get drawn into a striking match with George Masvidal. He didn't the last time they fought, and that's why he continually took him down, and the fight went the way the fight went. If it was a stand-up fight, Kamaru Usman would have some problems. And I know he sort of demonstrated a really, really good jab against Gilbert Burns in their last fight, but he also demonstrated that he can get hit round the ear by a swinging, winging, thrown from the hip overhand right, that I'm pretty sure George Masvidal will be a better striker and a better demonstrator of striking than Gilbert Burns would be. And I'm not trying to knock Gilbert Burns here. But when we see this fight, it's probably going to be much of the same. And I don't want that to happen. I want George Masvidal to win because I think he's fantastic. But that's probably not what's going to happen. It's probably not what's going to happen. So the other thing that's quite significant about that UFC 261 card is there's 3 title fights on there now. So we've got Weili Zhang taking on Rose Namajunas, which is going to be a fantastic fight. And I think ever since we had Jędrzejczyk versus Zhang, everyone was saying that they want to see Rose Namajunas, so that'll be on the card. This will also be in front of 15,000 fans, which will be the first UFC to be in front of a sold-out crowd. I know it's not probably the bigger arenas that they do, but 15,000 people is still pretty impressive indeed. The other fight on the card, of course, is Valentina Shevchenko taking on Jessica Andrade. That'll be a pretty good fight. But now we're looking at another card. So we've just come off the back of one card with 3 title fights on it. And now we're just going head on into another one with 3 title fights on it. So as far as the UFC start to the year, we've seen title fight after title fight. Sandwiched in between this, we've got the heavyweight title fight, Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic. So there's a lot going on. But after I've spiraled off that little kind of tangent, when we go back and we look at Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman, I'm very comfortable that they're having this rematch, even more so after we saw what happened with Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad at the weekend. And I know people are upset at me that I'm saying that Leon Edwards doesn't get another title shot, doesn't get a title shot, but he doesn't. His last 8-fight win streak, he's beat no one in the top 10. Actually, it's a lie. He beat Vicente Luque, who is number 10. He's beat no one inside the top 9. And I know people say, oh, he beat RDA, but RDA is not the same guy. Leon Edwards didn't look overly convincing in his performance against Bilal Muhammad. I'm not saying that he wasn't going to win the fight. I'm saying he poked the guy in the eye and the fight ended. So you do not get a title shot off poking someone in the eye. You need to be more emphatic than that. So I think we now do Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards. That's a pretty good fight. Or you do Leon Edwards versus Wonderboy. Or you do Colby versus Wonderboy. Or you do Michael Chiesa versus Wonderboy. Or you do Michael Chiesa versus Colby. There's fights in that welterweight division. They're all over the place. I think the fact that Masvidal fights Usman now is a good thing. I think they can put another 1 or 2 top contender fights around that fight. And then you kind of, the next competitor will immerse. They'll arrive from the ether and they'll turn up. And that's what we do with the welterweight division. But am I mad about Masvidal and Usman? No. I think it's fucking great.